Army, the ignorance there is profound. And from someone who is very political, very outspoken on all sorts of political and social issues, and yet he missed the UK's grooming gang scandal.
I mean, that wasn't even the biggest problem. Okay, look, I'm sure a lot of people on the left have never heard of this, right? Because the mainstream media really has been hiding that issue, shockingly. Look, that dumb mini-me didn't even know anything about Bill Maher's positions on these things. That's the crazy thing. Like, he's in the same world as Bill Maher, had no idea what Bill Maher's been saying for the last 5 to 7 years. Even more fascinating than the grooming scandal was the whole thing began, and I want to do a blow by blow because the whole, and I beg people,
yes, I've seen it.
Watch that, at least that portion. It's a 2-hour podcast. At least watch that like 15 minutes of it because it's so illuminating and fascinating. So he's just sitting there, and the whole thing began when he's talking about how great AOC is, and then Bill Maher responds with, "Well, if she gets deprogrammed." And you see his face, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" And Bill Maher's like, "AOC is like a crazy leftist." And he goes, "No, she's not." Like, he doesn't even register that AOC is on the far left. That's what's so crazy about it. And then it goes on. He's like, they're talking about COVID. He's like, "Well, the Democratic Party is the party of science." And Bill Maher's like, "No, they're not. Like, have you seen the whole thing about gender and how they refuse to acknowledge sex?" And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what?" And he's like, "Well, if they do, it's because they're weaponizing it against trans people to scapegoat them." And Bill Maher, to his credit, he's like, "What exactly are the trans people scapegoating for? Like, I don't know what you're talking about." And he couldn't come up with anything, obviously. The whole thing was crazy. Please go see it. But the best part was like, "Hey, no, I'm not in this leftist bubble. I read The Guardian." I kid you not. That was his response. Yeah, you know what? I read Pravda. Okay? Thank you very much.
But that's the Californian left for you. They're just so insulated from the real world and mainstream opinions across America. And that's why they get so shocked when Trump happens and he gets elected and wins quite easily. They don't know anybody who would possibly support him. Now, who knew Nicki Minaj would become the voice of reason and courage amongst celebrities? Today, she delivered a powerful speech at the United Nations to highlight the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. She started off by thanking President Donald Trump for bringing attention to the issue.
I would like to thank President Trump for prioritizing this issue and for his leadership on the global stage in calling for urgent action to defend Christians in Nigeria, to combat extremism, and to bring a stop to violence against those who simply want to exercise their natural right to freedom of religion or belief. I stand here as a proud New Yorker with a deep sense of gratitude that we live in a country where we can freely and safely worship God regardless of one's creed, background, or politics.
And Nicki Minaj spoke of the plight of Christians in Nigeria, thousands of whom have been slaughtered by Islamists.
Faith is under attack in way too many places. In Nigeria, Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, and killed. Churches have been burned. Families have been torn apart, and entire communities live in fear constantly, simply because of how they pray.
Ami, I've got to say I'm impressed. I don't normally care for celebrity opinions, but she is bringing attention to something that is being actively ignored by so many. Even some of the reporting on this, they say alleged persecution of Christians, despite all the available evidence.
Yeah, look, count me in as a member of the paid member of the Barbs. What can I tell you? Nicki Minaj, wow, all I thought she did was sing. I'll take the win wherever I can get it. Look, it's really, it's interesting. Yes, like you said, the way this is being kind of framed by the media is just so fascinating. I read article after article about this. CNN talking about how this is really a nuanced and complex issue. Really, is it really that nuanced? Right? Like they cannot make Muslims the bad guy. They just can't do it, no matter what the truth and the facts tell you, right? They cannot say that Christians are being persecuted by Muslim people. They have to say, like, well, by the way, Muslim people are being killed too, which is totally true, but they're being killed because they're not being Islamic enough for these radicals in Nigeria, right? They leave that part out conveniently, and so interestingly, they're giving the number of Christians killed. They gave the lowest number possible cited, right? Like all the numbers are between, 30 and 60,000, 35 and 60,000 Christian civilians being killed, and they quoted a 20,000 number, which is an outlier number. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Even more fascinating is yet when they're talking about the number of civilians killed in Gaza, right, 30 to 50,000. Look, protests across the street, outrage across the globe. But when Christians are being murdered in Nigeria, or Islamic people being killed for not being Islamic enough, total quiet. Then it becomes complex and nuanced. I don't see any encampments going on, right? Do you? I didn't. Look, the left, they don't care about black people being killed, I guess. They only care about Palestinians when they're being killed by Jews. I don't know what to tell you. That's what I see from those numbers.
Well, I've got to say, Nicki Minaj was a lot more eloquent than Cardi B. Remember, she spoke at a Kamala rally. Did not go well. Now, there was a lot of pomp and ceremony at the White House for the state visit of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Let's have a look at President Trump greeting the Crown Prince. And they had fruitful discussions with the Crown Prince announcing a massive boost to investment in the US.
We believe in what you're doing, Mr. President, really creating a lot of good things and good foundation to create more economic growth, more business in America. And it will also your work for the world peace. I believe, Mr. President, today and tomorrow we're going to announce that we are going to increase that $600 billion to almost $1 trillion of investment, real investment and real opportunity by details in many areas. And the agreement that we are signing today in many areas in technology, in AI.
Ami, $600 billion to $1 trillion in new investment. The US-Saudi relationship is it's strengthening further.
Yeah, $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. Soon we're talking about real money, Rita. Look, okay, let me start with stuff I didn't love, and then we'll go to the stuff that I love, right? Not a big fan of the Saudis getting F-35s. I got to tell you, don't like Arabs having that kind of technology, particularly with technology transfers. Don't really look. I like the move they're going in. Don't totally trust them at this point. Certainly, a fan of the Abraham Accords. I'll get that in a second. And look, didn't love also the whole when they brought up Khashoggi, which is a legitimate question to ask. The Saudi security service literally dismembered a man, okay, and put him in a suitcase to get rid of him. Not a huge fan of that, and didn't like when Trump was like, well, some people didn't like the guy. Fine, okay, I get it. Now, having said that, finally, look, what do we have with 4 years of Biden? We had him pushing the Saudis. Oh, this is real. As much as I don't trust the Saudis, this is realpolitik at its finest, okay? You deal with the people who are there. And him pushing the Saudis away for years, have the Saudis pivot toward who? Not England, not France. They pivoted toward the other powers in the world. They pivoted toward China. They pivoted toward Russia. That's not good for the United States. That is not good for peace around the world. They even started flirting with engagement with Iran because they were afraid of being left out in the cold with the Biden administration poo-pooing them and pushing them off to the side. Okay, that's the way we work. This is the reality of politics. Having them join the Abraham Accords, which is clearly the direction we're going in, is an absolute game changer for the Middle East. Okay, the Abraham Accord was big enough as it is. And let's be honest, the Gulf states would not have signed up without Saudi assent. But the Saudis have actually put their name on normalization with the state of Israel is something massive, and also puts the Palestinians in a difficult position and will lead toward eventual peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis, okay? Instead of what we had during the Biden administration, the Houthis continuing to bomb all across the Middle East because they were out of control because he would not support the Saudis in his war against the Houthis. That's the situation we find ourselves in. So kudos the president to having him come to the White House, and kudos to pushing forward with the Abraham Accords.
And there was a sign that relations between Elon Musk and President Trump have improved. Musk was at the White House dinner for the Crown Prince. Of course, they came together after that little tiff they had at Charlie Kirk's funeral in Phoenix, and it seems like things are improving there. Ami, stay with me.